consider that a grave matter and one that we have to consider how we deal with it. It doesn't mean that we're going to go to nuclear war, however, and it would be stupid to think so. So the idea that they can only stay independent if the U.S. is, behind them militarily, I think is simply the mistaken idea, and it's just too bad to have it. By the way, one of my most prized awards was, at one point, I won, I got the prize as for my contributions to Baltic freedom. It's one of my Baltic Americans. So I know the Baltic, I've been their friends a long time. I don't think they're threatened by Russia. And I do think that our militarizing that is going to be a danger to everybody.
We have time for one more question. Silas, you had your hand up first.
I was just curious if you see any potential reason for optimism with European or Western European and Central European relations with Russia, particularly Germany, whether you see in the future that could be a point for alliance building, or if it's going to be a point of contention.
Optimism at all in terms of Central Europe, Germany is helping to build better alliances, better relations. Give us something good at the end.
Things can turn on a dime. When I was asked in early spring 1983 to go to the Reagan White House, the Cold War was just about as close to being hot as it ever had been. We actually turned that around in 3 years. What's it going to take? Well, I had hoped. I was never a Trump supporter, but I had hoped that at least if he could hold with the idea that it's better to cooperate with Russia than to confront them, that we could sort of start on a new way and have them sit down. And at one point he actually said, wouldn't it be better if we could get off the sanctions and get back more into cooperation on nuclear? I think it would be. That's not just giving up anything to Russia. This whole Syrian situation, obviously, has brought about an immediate, very difficult thing for us now, and for everybody. And I think that in that case, it's unfortunate that the administration combines not only on the part of some a desire to deal with Russia, but also one to make Iran an enemy. It's hard to see how out of that we can, but at some point, I think if simply the leaders would sit down, and you would need, I believe in that, you do need some private one-on-ones, figuratively speaking, U.S., Russia, but also we need to involve Germany, we need to involve Angela Merkel, we certainly need to involve the UK, we need to involve the French, and what we do, but basically we have to, I think, say on both sides, there's no good reason for Russia to be an enemy. And Putin has to be willing to say there's no good reason for NATO to be an enemy. Now, the things that we've got to meet, and we've got to straighten out these things, because the things that should unite us are more important than those that divide us. If we could ever get that attitude on the part of the top leadership, I think actually you could sort out a lot of these things fast. Not that you're going to solve all the problems in the world, because you're not. But if you could keep getting each other out of the other's hair in things that are more important to them, or things that are more important to us, then you're going a long way to improve the relationships between the larger powers. I know how to do it. Do we have the people that can do it in the present political atmosphere? If I'm pessimistic, that would make me pessimistic. However, I do remember that if you would ask any American or European when Ronald Reagan was elected, is this going to be an American president who will cooperate to end the Cold War? I don't think you would have found many takers. There can be real surprises out there. And given the right leadership, I think it could be done. And I think it's just tragic the way we seem to be going off on both sides on courses of action that create reactions on the other that simply continue to complicate the situation. But the possibility is there. But it seems that our own politics doesn't demand it. We didn't debate these issues, did we? Okay. And yet, I personally am convinced that one of the reasons Trump was elected by the people he did was the feeling that we're in wars everywhere, we're spending a lot of money abroad. Well, you know, there's not that much in aid, but we are in the military. Our life is, in many respects, is deteriorating here, at least in some of the areas that have become relatively deindustrialized. And it hasn't been because of NAFTA and because of other reasons. But, you know, and it looks as if we never win anything anymore. We're always fighting somewhere and never ending it. I really do think that this involvement militarily in the world that had been created since the end of the Cold War, beginning with the Clinton administration, the expansion of NATO, and then getting much worse with the second Bush administration, that this has brought us a domestic politics, which seems to be ignoring what the real problem is. Because if we do rebuild our country, we're going to have to cut out trying to run the rest of the world by using military means. We're going to have, if we can afford it, we're going to have to cut that defense budget rather than reducing it. And once we get a leader that can see this, and a politics that if we don't get that leader that will force them, it's probably not going to happen. And we don't seem to have, you know, a Congress in either party which right now is concentrating on these basic issues. But, as I've said, look at the Reagan election and what we thought about it at the time, and look what eventually happened. History can turn on a dime on these issues, and sometimes it's something totally unexpected. Syria. I don't know what the impact is going to be. You know, if the horror of what's happened recently really comes home, maybe, you know, maybe you can put together some sort of ceasefire. I would hope so. If you could, then sometimes these emotions will recede. But I don't, you know, right now, the problem is that we seem to let these events themselves take hold of things. If I'm optimistic, and I still remain basically optimistic, it is that I have witnessed the way you can turn things pretty rapidly when you get the right leadership and the right support.
Well, I think we've all seen why Dr. Matlock is regularly called on to testify before Congress, why he's regularly called on to write important pieces in newspapers and media outlets, and why we're honored to have had him as this year's Havighurst lecturer. So let's give him a round of applause.
Let me say how fortunate you are to have the Havighurst Center here. For the future of our country, we need a solid core of people who understand Russian. We need a solid core of people who understand China. We need a solid core of people who understand other important areas of the world and understand the importance of respect for their cultures, respect for peaceful interaction. And I think we're doing a great job of providing this here. I congratulate you.
Thank you very much.